And what's going on, Yankee fans? Big Blue in the Bronx is back again, and we are, well, this is being recorded on a Thursday, I must remind you that. But we're almost to the day of spring training, and I have some news about that. We're obviously going to talk about the news around camp and the Domingo thing. I know we talked about a little bit with Jules on Monday/Tuesday because I always pre-record, but we have a lot of stuff to get into. If you look to this side, and I know because the camera's like kind of cutting out my finger, we have spring training buzz to go over. 2 Yankees are back from the Girardi era. We'll point those 2 out. 26-man roster projection, 40-man roster projection. I also have my favorite, or at least, 3 people to look at for non-roster invitees. 2 of my favorites in there. I think there's another one in there as well. So let's talk a little bit. And first, I'd like to bring up this whole Hermana thing, and I was going to bring it up at the end because I was just doing some notes before I started recording. And I'm like, you know what? This is more of the recent news, or at least it's been going on for a while, so I wanted to just get it out of the way. So my thing with this whole Hermana thing is, look, what he did wasn't right. And to be honest, I was kind of shocked when I heard that his girlfriend and him were still together. And thank you to Brian Hoke and Bronx Brahmer News and stuff like that for keeping me updated. Obviously, I'm not a source. I'm not in there. I don't have sources in there. So they usually keep the fans updated throughout the day, the week, whatever, with all this news. It's kind of like beat reporters for the Giants. I mean, they kind of do the same thing. And obviously, coming into this year and spring training, I think a lot of people, including myself, knew that there was going to be a weird feeling. Domingo Germán is coming back, and he, has been out a year. He didn't pitch for the Yankees in 2020. I don't think he was even in spring training. And, that could cause some damage to the locker room and the trust in him. So, obviously, we heard, Zach Britton start opening his mouth. But I think definitely in that situation, and we went back and forth on this, not really back and forth, but we were talking about it. Jules was talking about this. The Yankees are a classy organization, and they're not going to do things like, let's just say for NFL reasons, Deshaun Watson, trade me, release me. That's not going to happen with the Yankees. They're a classy organization in a classy city in a big market, and they're not going to do that. That's just what they don't do. They're going to be, that classy type of organization that tries to, not put all the attention on them. The attention they want on them, of course, is when they go on the field and they start winning 5 games, 6 games in a row. But nonetheless, coming into this year, you really didn't have, an established locker room presence. CC Sabathia has been gone for almost 2 years. Brett Gardner obviously wasn't signed at the time when Britton opened his mouth. So it wasn't a locker room, all the Giants back from, 2017. It wasn't that. But, Britton, I guess, expressed concern publicly, or something got leaked, and now everybody knows about it. So what happened is that Aaron Boone obviously said something about it, and I think Cashman may have. I don't know, to be honest with you. Luke Voigt, I'll share you his quote right now. And, he basically addressed everybody in the Yankees organization other than the owners. Which is kind of surprising, but at the same time, the Steinbrenners do what they do best, and, they sit upstairs and, they, handle the other stuff while the Yankees and Aaron Boone handle the locker room stuff. So, Luke Voigt said this on Hermana. We have him back, but he is skating on thin ice. And this is something I've really never seen before, at least with the Yankees. At least I don't remember it, to be honest with you. I've never seen this with the Yankees because, in my lifetime, or at least the time I've been a Yankees fan, I haven't seen this to where, a player does something wrong, and you usually don't get that much attention with the Yankees. With the Herman thing came out, nobody really said anything other than the news sources, of course, and then they put him on the suspension, and now Britton says something. So, probably to cap it off, the Yankees are handling this, in my opinion, very well. They're going to give him another shot. I never really agree, to be honest, with cutting him. I know a lot of Yankee fans out there, cut him already. And there was a couple other fans that were saying the same thing as well. And they're not going to do that in the middle of spring training. If you're saying just as be a fan, I understand that. But, when it comes to, oh, he's already in spring training, why don't you cut him now? It doesn't make any sense. And he is a vital part of this team. By no means what he did was right. But, he served his suspension. He did what he did for the MLB, and now he's back in the Yankees uniform. And, I think what Britton said, he should have been a little bit smarter. I don't know what the, full story was. I know what he said. It's just in the terms of how it came out. Oh, did somebody leak it? Did he say it to the press? Did he say it to this person? Did he say it to that person? I don't know. But when you're in the New York media, you kind of have to be a little more, for a lack of better words, I don't know, eyes open, say it that way. And I didn't think he was, meaning to start trouble. I think he was just trying to put a message out there. Look, man, we don't fully trust you yet because of what you did, how many months ago. And Herman, obviously, he's got his translator and everything, but, he spoke and he said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause a distraction and everything else. So, again, it was peculiar to me. But at the same time, things like this have happened all across sports. I mean, DeAndre Baker sort of thing happened. Nobody really said anything in terms of that. But Baker said at the end, when he was freed of charges and he's on the Chiefs, he's like, I didn't mean any disrespect to the Giants. They gave me a chance and, all the drama blew it and it's partially my fault, which is, a respectful thing to do in the New York media. You're not going to go ahead and trash the team like Jamal Adams or something like that. But, DeAndre Baker said his apology, and so did Domingo Herman. I mean, even though Baker was kind of a different situation, we could finally move on with this thing. Doesn't mean we forget it, but I guess for right now, we do forgive it. So, going back to the first spring training game, which will happen, obviously, this Sunday against the Blue Jays, Michael King will start. And obviously, if you're a Yankee fan and you pay attention, you know that they're not going to start Corey Kluber or Garrett Cole immediately, It's going to be really hard, in my opinion, for a couple of different reasons this spring training. Because obviously, they put in the rule of, only 5 teams the Yankees could play. And again, I agree with that in terms of travel. But at the same time, you are hurting the minor league players, and I'll get to that reason in a minute. But also, the Yankees are going out West Coast this season. They're going to the Central teams. They're going to Kansas City. They're going all those places. So I don't understand. I get it. Exposure, at least early in the season, is the worst because that could, shut down everything. Just like any other point can, but obviously earliest is the worst. But it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Again, I have total, I would say, remorse for the whole COVID thing, and I get it. I get the COVID thing, no travel, barely any travel. I get you trying to limit travel, but at the same time, when your teams are, playing teams out west this season and they're going to be, doing interleague play once again, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And with that comes no split squad games, which I always enjoy. And obviously they never broadcast, two of the same team. Obviously the Yankees don't do that. But if there was a home game, the Yankees would broadcast. If it was a away game, just like any other spring training, they would not broadcast it, obviously. It would be up to, you finding a stream of the, let's just say the Yankees play in Sarasota with Baltimore. You have to find a stream that the Baltimore crew is broadcasting. So, it's not like regular season games where they follow everybody. I mean, things are going to be different this year, especially with broadcasters, because we don't know if they're going to be traveling. We don't know if they're going to be staying home, which I really don't want to happen. I mean, I get it. Once again, COVID. But just for, the forsaken future, a lot of the broadcasters, it's not just, speaking into a microphone and, you enjoy the experience as well because there's a lot of probably East Coast guys who've never been to the West Coast and would like to go to the West Coast just to see it and explore it, But it is going to hurt that there's no split squads because, once again, you have the non-roster invitees, which include the minor league prospects. I mean, it's not going to be all 30 top prospects. You'll have those minor leaguers you don't know. But definitely, if I was Aaron Boone, I would give the minor leaguers more playing time. Because as I said, I'm going to repeat it once again. It's kind of like no preseason in a way. You're hurting the minor league players. You're hurting the younger players. Because they're in your system. And I'm not saying, it's MLB team's fault. It's the MLB's fault in a way because they have to consider this. And I get it. There were concerns before. And I'm talking in Arizona. I'm not talking in Florida. There were concerns before of, Maricopa County has, how many cases and whatnot. And there was some leaks about that. Apparently, Jeff Passan was saying, that the hockey in, I think, Maricopa, Arizona, or some county in Arizona. The stadiums were open and everything was flowing fine, but the mayor signed off on it of no spring training baseball in Arizona, which didn't make a lot of sense. But my point is, and I'll get down to it, obviously before I go to the other spring training buzz, is that, split squads will hurt. And it's going to hurt some of these minor leaguers as well because they didn't play last year. With the whole COVID pandemic 2020 season, minor leaguers did not play. Minor league teams did not play. So guys who weren't at the Rail Riders camp or AAA teams camp or the alternate site, as they say, guys who weren't there are going to be, I would trust them enough to be working out and, staying in shape during that time, but it's going to feel a little different because you're not playing games unless you're in the Mexican League, I think it is, or it's, the Spanish League or something like that where Luis Medina was playing, Luis Gil was playing, who else was playing? Gary Sanchez was playing, Miguel Andujar was playing. So unless you're staying up to shape, it's kind of like you're playing high school baseball and then you go play for a travel team in the summer. That's how you stay in shape. That's how you, play games and stuff, but it's going to be harder for players who didn't do that to jump on a field again and say, hey, I'm going to be playing in a game again. It's going to be, much. Obviously, that's why they have players and pitchers and everyone else report to spring training. For obviously, it's basically like training camp before the preseason games. So, without further ado, let's go on to the Clint Frazier one. I don't have the exact quote, but he did say now he feels a part of this team. He feels he's all grown up. And I really like to see that because, as Jules said on Tuesday, it's a long time coming. Long time coming for Clint Frazier. I was excited. I think 2017 he was out. It was actually 2016 he was out for the season. 2017, I was so excited to see him, but I think he got sent down right away, and then he got called back up and hit those homers against, I think it was the Brewers, I want to say. In 2018, obviously, he was up and down. 2019, obviously, that whole media thing where he, did not talk to the media, which is, I think, actually mandatory. And that's why the Yankees have that guy. I don't know his name. They have a guy in there that, basically suits up the player relations to the media because you're in the New York media. It's not like you're going to Kansas City or Texas. You're going to New York media, and if you don't, do something the right way, the fans will crap on you, the media will crap on you. So obviously after 2019, that big game against the Red Sox where he was playing right field and made too many defensive errors that cost us, 2020, his defense was pretty good, and as was his hitting. So you'll get that at Clint Frazier, and, with his defense improving, he's definitely going to be the starting left fielder, and I think Boone is making a very smart decision with that, even with Brett Gardner coming back, which will actually compromise guys like Estevan Florial and Mike Tauchman. We know Greg Allen was DFA'd, but those backseat outfielders like Tauchman and what's the other one I just mentioned? Estevan Florial and some of those other guys, maybe Jay Bruce as well. It's going to compromise those guys because they want to see Frazier, acting like a starter. They're going to put him in the starting lineup probably, my guess, between the 5th hole and the 8th hole. I'm going to say that for right now. Again, I don't know. I'm not projecting anything. I'm not projecting the starting lineup yet. But they're going to be given, how many innings before they go to the rookies and all the younger guys. So, again, he's going to get an up in playing time even in the regular season. So, again, but definitely it's going to compromise the outfielders who are trying to compete for the backup spots, like Tauchman, as I just said. And this will also, sort of compromise them as well. Stanton said he could play the outfield. Boone says he has no problem putting him there sometimes, which will compromise them again. Obviously, Frazier, playing left field, starting left field, does more of the work of the compromising. But Stanton getting some time in left field and right field, maybe Frazier's DH one day, maybe Judge's DH one day, he could play left and right. He can't play center. I mean, I don't know when he's played center. But Hicks is obviously going to be your starting center fielder. Judge will be in right. Maybe he'll rotate with DH. I mean, I don't really see Clint being a DH because, he's not injury prone like Aaron Judge or Giancarlo Stanton. So they'll probably flip-flop him in right field. And right field is his position, at least before he got injured. They're playing him DH. So that's definitely going to compromise. Also something I didn't know till today, Justin Wilson's not throwing sinkers anymore, which is going to be interesting. But, obviously I'll save a little bit of that for my roster projections as well. Also, one of the highlights in spring training, Garrett Cole struck out Mike Tauchman, I think it was today or yesterday in batting practice. Mike Tauchman, what does he do? He hits a homer in the next at bat. So he could be impressing there, and obviously, once again, that's your own pitchers. Once you start going up against younger pitchers or older pitchers that are trying to compete for spots on other teams, you'll see what he actually is made of and, what he's coming into spring training with. So, obviously, I said the Voit Herman thing. Gio Urshela could play Sunday. This was, a couple days ago that Aaron Boone said, he may play Sunday. Gio Urshela said he's almost back to 100%. With that, do not rush him. I get it. You want him back. He's your best defensive third baseman. But at the same time, you don't want to compromise him. You don't want to put him out on the field for an inning. He makes a dive at a ball and, hurts something. I forget what his injury was. I think he removed a bone spur, or doctors removed a bone spur, and he's been, recovering from the surgery ever since. But my point is, you don't want to re-affect that spot in spring training. If it was a regular season, I could sort of see it, but at the same time, you wouldn't want to compromise a player like that. You would not want to, for lack of better words, put a player in that situation. So, if it was me, I would see how Urshela's doing. I would not play him on Sunday. I would not play him on Sunday. I'd probably play Andujar at third base or somebody else. Tyler Wade doesn't play third, no. Mike Ford does not play third, no. Tyler Estrada maybe, but in terms of, starting third base, maybe Andujar gets one more crack. And, this is one of his final cracks at probably being a starter. I mean, Urshela's pretty much, had it in the bag for how many years now, ever since he came onto the scene. And Andujar's season-ending surgery in May of 2019, and then 2020, he's up and down from camp to the big leagues. So I don't think that Andujar is going to, take it back defensively. I think he's going to try to take it back offensively. And obviously, Urshela, everybody gets into struggles at some point, but Urshela is known for his defense. I mean, 2019, he had a big offensive year. But in terms of, the way Andujar wants to win the position back, obviously, if he's going to get some playing time at all, he'll probably be because of his offense and not because of his defense. So that's the way I see that thing. And just another note to add, Jay Bruce, he was playing first base. I mean, I think he played first base a little bit with the Phillies or the Mets or the Reds, one of those National League teams. But I definitely wouldn't mind that. He is a non-roster invitee, so he's not on the 40-man roster. So we'll see where, the Yankees put him in that stuff. So obviously, before I go into my predictions, my projections for the 26-man roster and the 40-man roster, I want to go over something, and obviously I'll go over right now. Two Girardi guys, or at least, they were from the Girardi era, are back with the Yankees. And one I didn't know about, one, of course, I knew about. Adam Warren, he obviously came up with the Yankees. He got traded, or he was, signed with another team. He's been flip-flopping ever since with the Yankees, but he actually, had a, I would say, semi-decent year with the San Diego Padres last year. He had a 4-1 record, a 5.34 ERA, 25 games, and 28.2 innings pitched. He didn't start. He was a reliever. And the other guy's Nick Goody, and I remember this guy very vaguely. I remember there were two Nicks that were coming up from the Rail Riders. There was Nick Rumbello, and there was Nick Goody. And, I remember seeing both of them in Scranton, and obviously I remember seeing them in the big leagues just on TV. I didn't go to the games. But with Texas last year, he's 0-2, 9.00 ERA, 17 games, 11 innings pitched. So both are non-roster invitees. I really don't expect Goody to make it, but I just wanted to make the note that he is back with the Yankees. I didn't know they re-signed him, but, I thought he'd be out of the league by now. But, hey, Yankees are giving him another shot with a different manager, no less, and with a different set of coaches. So three guys, my favorite non-roster invitees, and these three guys I think you guys should keep out for. You probably know two of the names. I'm going to list three of the names. So, the first one is Derek Dietrich. Derek Dietrich spent a couple of years with the Miami Marlins, and then I think he went to the Cincinnati Reds. Was with the Phillies for a little bit. I think last year or the year before, didn't really get to play much, and now he's with the Yankees. I think that, I don't know his defensive stats, and I don't know what he does defensively, but offensively, I think he's a home run hitter. From looking at his stats, obviously, he's the power hitter of the lineup, and I would personally probably take him over Tyler Wade. I mean, Tyler Wade has speed, but Derek Dietrich has power. So I would see, and just take a note of how those two guys play in spring training. I don't know, maybe Derek Dietrich gets a backup infield spot and takes him from Tyler Wade. I really don't see that, which is, a hint to the projections later on. But once again, anything could happen. Yangervis Solarte took over for Eduardo Nunez in 2014, so, anything can happen. The next guy, Jay Bruce. Obviously, everybody knows him. He was on the Reds for a while. He was on the Mets for a while. He was on the Phillies for a bit. And, he's been all over the National League, and now he's with the Yankees. Being expendable at first base, as I mentioned a little earlier, he was taking some reps at first base, is going to help him. I think if he hits well, obviously, it's going to help him. Defensively, I don't know. As I said earlier, it's going to compromise with Frazier starting left field and with Stanton maybe getting some outfield time during spring training. I don't know if they'll do that. They might, but then again, I don't know. But that will definitely compromise guys like Mike Tauchman, Estevan Florial, Jay Bruce. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the Yankees handle that in terms of playing time. But I definitely would not mind having Jay Bruce on the roster as long as, he's not, just a damaging force to this lineup in terms of striking out and making bad defensive plays. I mean, most likely, even if he gets, on the 40-man or gets on the 26-man roster, he's not going to get, these many reps of playing time. He's not. It'll be Frazier, Hicks, and Judge with Stanton at DH. So you'll probably see Bruce as a pinch hitter or as a DH on occasion. So he's not going to be, that everyday outfielder. It's not going to happen. The next guy is Addison Russ. Some of you guys don't remember him, and we traded David Hale last year for Addison Russ. Hale went to the Phillies. We got Addison Russ. And I forgot about this guy. I'm not going to lie to you, but I looked up his stats earlier, and he could be something for the Yankees bullpen. He, I think one year he had 5-6 record. I think this was 2019 because obviously no minor leagues last year. But in 2019, he had a 5-6 record, still at a 2.54 ERA for guys who actually look at ERA because a lot of the analytics bugs don't like looking at ERA anymore. They actually like looking at expected ERA, which really doesn't make any sense. Why would you use expected ERA and not use ERA? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. People tried throwing that in my face, expected batting average, expected this, that, and the other thing. Like, stop. Give me ERA and then give me expected ERA. Don't throw, just don't go backwards with me. I could try to get into analytics, but I really don't want to in terms of baseball. Football is a little bit of a different story. As long as you got your points and, your film behind it and your other stats behind it, that's fine. Don't give me baseball analytics. Let's not make baseball into football. Or, the other way around if some of you think like Don LaGreca here. But Addison Russ, he definitely, throughout his minor league career, he's pitched well from level to level, and he could actually be something for the Yankees in the bullpen. I'd rather have him than a Michael King or a Nick Nelson, but obviously, we're going to see what he does in spring training. Okay, so for once, you don't get to see my ugly face. Just kidding about that one. No, not really. But anyway, let's go to the 26-man early roster projection. I wanted to create this because I'm like, you know what? Let me do it anyway. I was going to project the lineup, but I said, nah, I don't want to project the lineup. But I definitely want to get this started just like as a early before spring training, games actually happen. I want to throw out my predictions. Obviously, spring training, afterwards, I'll do one before opening day, and you'll obviously see that. Probably in between one of the days that the Yankees are off, I'll probably put out on like a Tuesday or something. I have to check the spring training schedule. But once again, we'll get there. For the pitchers, I have Garrett Cole, Corey Kluber, Jameson Taillon, Domingo Germán, and Jordan Montgomery. That's your basic rotation for the Yankees. I do not see Davey Garcia making the rotation or let alone the roster early. I think that guys like Darren O'Day and Justin Wilson in the bullpen will provide some depth. I mean, you have Chad Green, who's basically, your starter or, basically starter in the back end of the bullpen who could provide you some bullpen days just like Jonathan Loaisiga. Now you go into your relief pitchers like Justin Wilson, Darren O'Day, Chad Green, and Loaisiga, like I just mentioned, Zach Britton, and Roldis Chapman. So there, I know I kind of have, it's not really a bias, but in that case, I'm not really putting Michael King on the roster. I'm not putting Nick Nelson on the roster. I think they will try to stick to Justin Wilson and Darren O'Day, obviously depending on how they're doing. Darren O'Day, I think 2 years ago was pretty good. Justin Wilson, I think he had a rough year last year. I think it was with the Mets. That's probably why they didn't re-sign him. But once again, if he could go back to his 2015 Yankee form, that'd be great. But we're talking about Matt Blake here as the pitching coach. So, catchers, it's the most obvious thing you could probably point out on a roster projection. Gary Sanchez and Kyle Higashioka. Infielders, I have about 7 of them listed. Mike Ford, He's going to be that backup first baseman and kind of the power bat on occasion if he could make it through spring training and not strike out 30 times. DJ LeMahieu, obviously, why wouldn't we have DJ on the roster? Same with Luke Voigt, Urshela, Gleyber Torres. Tyler Wade, I really wish they would try to get rid of him. It's nothing, oh, you hate Tyler Wade for no reason. No, it's just when he's on the field, the only thing that Yankee fans and that the Yankees are attracted to is his damn speed. He doesn't do anything defensively. Oh, just because he played the outfield like 4 years ago doesn't make him good, okay? Doesn't make him good. I don't know where Yankee fans are getting that he's this star player. Anyway, Miguel Andujar, he's probably going to be that, reserve infielder, probably not for defensive reasons, but more like a pinch hitting reason. So you look at the outfield, Aaron Judge, Aaron Hicks, and Clint Frazier, those will be your starters. Giancarlo Stanton being the designated hitter. And Brett Gardner will be, your backup outfielder. And I know it is kind of concerning and, a little different that they're not playing in this, projection, that they're not having 6 outfielders. Well, you kind of could put Tyler Wade in the outfield, supposedly, and Miguel Andujar as well, because Andujar played a little left field last season, and Wade also played center field and right field a couple of times in his career. I think left field as well. But I don't see Mike Tauchman making it. Obviously, as I told you earlier, he did hit a homer in spring training, in practice. But that doesn't mean he's making the roster. I really think that last year kind of sunk the boat with him. And with Frazier getting more playing time in left field and the Yankees finally entrusting him with the left field starting spot, I just don't think there's enough room for Tauchman. I personally would be content with the roster that I have projected. Tyler Wade obviously being the odd man out of that one because I really don't like Tyler Wade. But let's move into the 40-man roster projection, the guys I have on the 40-man roster, which will be 14 guys not on the active roster. So here I have the 14 guys that are basically left off the roster, and, the players are going to injured list. So I have Estevan Florial. I think that he will probably go up to AA or maybe even AAA this season. I know he got some time last year. I think he was 1 for 4 against the Mets. He did get his first hit, though, but I think since that happened, his trade value kind of lowered, so the Yankees don't really have any place to move him. But it's not necessarily the NFL where you're like, oh, this guy, oh, that guy, it's basically not the same in terms of trade value. If you have a young running back or something like that, and, teams will be more interested if he does more on the field. But if you have, Estevan Florial, I think some teams, if you get what I'm saying, the trade value is different in both leagues, both situations. Mike Tauchman, as I said, he will probably be in the minor leagues to start, at least in my opinion, because, again, the outfield situation. Davey Garcia, as I stated earlier, he's probably, in my opinion, not going to make the roster right away. I think last year was kind of a compromise situation, and, I'm still not happy about that Game 2 ALDS where Aaron Boone took him out after an inning and put in J-Happ. How genius was that, right? Derek Dietrich, some of these I will remark will not necessarily be the most accurate because you will have some players sometimes, like a Luis Gil or something like that, from a Tampa Tarpons. I know they're going back to the lower A, so I think the high A team, who was now the Hudson Valley Renegades, have somebody from the Renegades or somebody from the, what's the double A team? I don't even know these teams yet. Somerset Patriots probably be on the 40-man roster. Doesn't mean they're going to call them up, though. So, that's also a note to make. Derek Dietrich, he could be in that situation, but I think, the Yankees are good in terms of infield depth. But once again, if Tyler Wade or someone else gets hurt and you need a power bat, Derek Dietrich is there. Tyler Estrada, defensively, he's good. Power, he'll show it once in a while, but he's good with his speed. And I obviously don't think that he will be making the roster right off the bat. He'll start in Scranton. Albert Abreu, the same thing. He got, a little tidbit of the major leagues last year. I don't think he's going to be starting there. Luis Sessa, this might be a little bit of personal bias, but I really don't think he's going to fit on the roster if he doesn't, produce results, because ever since 2016, him and Chad Green have flopped. I mean, Chad Green had his moments last year where he was bad. He had his moments in 2019 when he was bad, but it seemed like they flopped because 2016, Sessa looked good and Chad Green looked bad. Meanwhile, those two flopped, and Sessa started looking bad starting in 2017, and Green looked good, someone the Yankees can trust. Risky. Don't know much about him. Obviously, he's been with the Yankees the last, I think, 2 seasons out of the bullpen. He'll start in AAA immediately. Rob Brantley, he's going to be like that Eric Kratz guy. Obviously, they're not going to hold 3 catchers on the roster. I think that's kind of stupid if they did that. But Rob Brantley obviously signed to a minor league contract with an invite to spring training. He'll be getting the catcher role in Scranton. Chris Gittens, I was impressed with him. I think he had a home run against the Blue Jays. It was either last year or the year before. It's getting to my mind because obviously the 2020 pandemic season. But once again, I would like to see Chris Gittens on the 40-man. I don't think he's a bad player, and I think they will put him there. Nick Nelson and Michael King as well. They will be starting in Scranton. They're not going to get called up right away because, it's either way. One of them is going to be sent down with Justin Wilson if he pitches well, and also the other guys, I don't see them how many years into his career, Jonathan Loizaga, them optioning him. He's a force out of the bullpen, just like Chad Green is. Go to Oswaldo Peraza. He's a guy I don't know much about. I think he was in Tampa last year, the year before, and he's probably going to be with Hudson Valley this year. Jay Bruce. It's kind of really, I would say, confusing in a way because some of these guys, I'll point to a situation that happened a couple of years ago when Mark Teixeira was injured and Greg Byrd was out, I think, the entire 16 season with some injury. They called Ike Davis and Chris Parmelee up before they did Nick Swisher, and I really didn't understand it, to be honest, but it just shows, sometimes favoritism. It's not really favoritism, but, they'd rather select Ike Davis or Chris Parmelee to play first base rather than Nick Swisher, who was, I think, 35, 36 at the time. Shout-outs to him, though. One of my favorite Yankees of all time. But guys like Bruce, a lot of, I would say, fans expect guys like Bruce and guys like Derek Dietrich to automatically make the 40-man because they're easy to call up and, they played in the big leagues before. Sometimes that actually doesn't happen, and sometimes they'll just be, in, let's say, AAA. They'll stay there for a couple of weeks in the season, then they'll call them up. But it's not like the teams have to outright him. It's not like if the Yankees opted to not start them and put him in AAA. It's not like they have to outright him because both of them are not on the 40-man roster. And plus, you would need the consent of both of them if they are past 5 years in the career, and both of them are. So, that's pretty much that. And that's pretty much my 40-man roster predictions. Obviously, Clark Schmidt, he's been shut down for a couple of weeks, I think, getting an elbow sprain. I think they'll probably put him on the IL 15 days or 10 days. I think it's 15 days this year to start, and they'll probably send him down afterwards. I don't think he's completely ready yet. Luis Severino probably going to the 60-day IL as well because of the surgery he's coming off of. And once again, he'll be back in June, July, August. So those are my 40-man roster projections. Obviously, the 26 beforehand. So that pretty much wraps up this episode of the Big Blue in the Bronx podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for supporting. Thank you for the Hub for having me on once again. Tuesday's talk show. Shoutouts to the content creators that go on there. Very awesome guys, very cool guys. We always have a laugh when we're on there, no matter what. But anyway, thank you guys. Hopefully, we win on Sunday. Just rooting for the Yankees. Obviously, I'm so excited that baseball is back. I don't know if I'll be streaming the game because you know how YouTube is with copyright. If you play it on volume 2 and they hear a snippet of Michael K's voice, they're going to take you down immediately. But I definitely will be calling some games probably this season with Sox Arizona. I'll try to find a time or, when he's free in his schedule. Shout-outs to Sox Arizona, who's a Red Sox fan that lives in Arizona. He's also a Giants fan as well. But shout-outs to him. If I don't go to a Red Sox game this year, I definitely will be calling one of them with him. So thank you guys. We'll see you on Tuesday probably with another Giants subject. I'm probably going to have a special guest on, and I'll keep you guys updated with another former Yankee that I might be interviewing in the coming days as well. Obviously, post that on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Twitter with the most updates. Thank you guys, and we will see you on Tuesday.